welcome back to another inspired XPert end user operations training video. Today, we're going to learn how to create a 4-part layout, which is a standard way of designing digital signage that provides different types of content at different aspect ratios. And I'll show you what a 4-part layout looks like. Now, if you watched the video on how to create a basic sign, then you should already know how to add a layout and how it works. But this is going to show you in a little bit more detail how to use a layout with multiple screens rather than a full screen. And so to begin that, we're going to create a message. And I'm going to search for layout and look at the layouts that we have. Now we have varying types of layouts here. We have the full screen modal layout, which is what we used before for the 16:9 that we created in that basic sign video. And that just is a single piece of signage that's full screen. We have the ticker here, which has a 16:9 and then a smaller ticker that looks to be a 26:1 ticker. We have this tri-split layout here. We have varying different types of layouts that we could use in different types of situations. A 9:16 layout, it's a portrait instead of landscape. All different types of layouts that we could use, but the layout that we're going to use for this lesson is what's called the classic split. And the classic split is the classic 4-screen split layout. And so here we see we have a 16:9 area, but not full screen. And then we have this, what looks to be a 3:5, and then we have this smaller one that's the 10:1. We saw that when we created the weather feed reel. And then we see the 26:1, which would fit a ticker message. If you can't tell just by looking at this preview, don't worry. We'll see what it looks like in a moment, and you'll see that. I'm just going to go ahead and select the layout I want, and I'm going to click Next. And here we need to enter our name. We need to be sure we change our name. So I'm going to call this AMX Demo Layout 4-Split. So I'll know what that is. All right. And the last time we looked at a layout, there was only one area, and that said 16:9 because there was only one area on the sign, and it was full screen. But in this situation, we have 4 areas. We have a 16:9 area, a 3:5 area, a 10:1 area, and a 26:1 area. If you can't just remember these, which might be kind of hard to remember, feel free to write them down if you need to. Just be sure you remember that we have a 16:9, a 3:5, a 10:1, and a 26:1. So if you can just remember those, or if you need to write them down, do. But this is where you go to find out what the dimensions are for the different areas that you have on your screen. And then below that, we have the template color. I'm going to adjust my color again. I'm going to pick this blue color, which is a nice blue, and click Save. And assign it to your resource pools. Click Save again. And all right, our template is ready to go. In our last video, we created a 10:1 and a 26:1 message, but we haven't used those yet in any layouts, so those aren't showing up on our sign yet. If you remember, if they're not in a playlist, they're not playing on your sign. So just because you create a message, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be on your sign. You need to put them into a playlist, which is what we're going to do now. So now I need to assign messages to each of the playlists for the different areas that we're going to use. And at the top here we see 10:1. And if you wrote those numbers down, or if you remember, we had a 10:1 area on our layout, so we want to be sure we check that. This will let us see what messages we want to play in our 10:1 area. And just like we did when we created a full screen message, this is the same idea. We're going to select a message or several messages that we want to play in that area. And here I see the AMX demo that I created, and I'm going to add that message to our playlist. Now I could also choose any of these others. These here are just demos, but I could add them, or I could create several different messages. One that's weather, maybe one that's news, maybe one that just has some information about a product that I'm trying to sell. I could create several. As long as they are in the 10:1 aspect ratio, I can add as many of the 10:1 aspect ratio messages into this playlist that I wanted to. We're just going to pick one of these stock ones and just go ahead and add it, and I'll show you what I mean. So now we have a couple of these item templates on here, plus our weather template, and we're ready to go. I'm going to do OK. Now, beyond our 10:1, we also have the 16:9. which if we look, we already have something assigned to our 16 by 9, which is that demo sign that we created in the Creating a Basic Sign video. So that's really the only thing that we want to be displaying in that 16 by 9 area at the moment. For the 26 by 1, that's another area. If you remember, that's the small ticker at the bottom. And for that, we created the news ticker that we have at the bottom. And so I'm going to add that. And I think that's really all we want for a ticker. And so I'm going to do OK. And now the only thing that's left is the 3 by 5. Now, if you notice, I haven't created any 3 by 5 messages. But one thing I can add is a clock and date item template. And this will let us just add a basic clock with the date below it that we can use in our sign. And I don't have to set anything on that up, so I can just use that as it is. So I can add that clock in, and now I'll have a clock in that 3 by 5 area that's going to be on the right-hand side of our screen. So now to check again, we have a 10 by 1. We have a few things in our 10 by 1 area. In our 16 by 9 primary area, we have our demo sign that we made. 26 by 1, we have that news ticker. And in the 3 by 5, we have that clock. So now we have all of our messages assigned for the 4 areas that we have in our layout template. And so now the only thing we have left to do is to select the right layout. So I'm going to go to Layout Selector. I'm going to remove this full screen layout. We only want one layout playing at a time. So I'm going to choose the 4 split layout and add that instead. And so that's the 4 split layout that we created. I'm going to choose OK. And so now we'll be using that layout in our sign now. So now that the new layout is selected and all of our items are displaying in our playlist, we're ready to go. We have everything that we need and we're ready to publish. And so all we need to do to publish is force publish all our messages. You can see the status here of sending all of that data. And in a moment that's going to send. And pretty soon our player is going to update here. And if we want to check, we can go to Live Monitor and watch as that player updates. All right, looks like it's changing its layout. And there we go, we've got our new layout here. And everything seems to be working. We can see our weather is working, and we can see the image of the weather. We can see our news is ticking across the bottom. We see our clock here. And we can see the different 10 by 1 items in our playlist. See, we had the weather, and now we have the next item that was in our playlist, and it's going to play through the different items in our playlist here at the bottom while these others remain static. That's how it works. We've added the 4 different areas, and we've added items to each area, and we have a functioning sign here. And that's all it takes to create dynamic signage using XPert. So I hope you get in there, play around, create some content, create some messages, and publish those to your sign.